Age of Alpine Ore, Book 1 of the Trilogy by Mike Culligan, copyright 2014. Chapter 1. Agnetha Welltime came into the world at 6 o'clock in the morning, 31st of January 1888. An icy cold day, strong winds and heavy snowfalls had swept the Silver Federation for weeks. Born at home, which was the family farmstead on Mount Rober in the Alps, she was the third child of Bruno and Wilhelmina or Hemi Welltime. Agnetha was a much welcome addition to the hard-working farming family. Weighing just over 3.2 kilos, she was a healthy baby, with big blue eyes, strongly kicking limbs, curly jet black locks and chubby cheeks. "What an absolute cutie!" roared the midwife as she cradled the newborn. She was yet to cut the umbilical cord, but welcoming the new addition of the family into the world was the right thing to do. Laying the baby carefully down on clean birthing sheets on the bed, she tied off the newborn's umbilical cord in 2 places, cutting it neatly between the ties. Newborn Agnetha kicked out, flailing her arms as she filled her lungs with the oxygen of life from the fire-warmed air in the birthing room. Already she was a willful and determined little soul. Outside, vicious winds battered the chalet. Shutters rattled dangerously as if they might be torn off their brass hinges. Only those windows which were truly needed had been left, but protected by iron bars outside in the sub-zero daytime temperatures. These very panes of glass were subjected to tremendous pressure changes as winds buffeted them one way and then another, slicing into them with blizzards of snow and hail at high velocity. So strong was the wind that it seemed as if it would join the family at any moment and sweep all away before it. Candles and oil lanterns flickered violently as gusts forced their way through the floorboards and ceilings of the heavily timbered building, which itself also groaned like a galleon under full sail under the strain of the forces generated by the winds. Bruno Welltime peered over the midwife's shoulders as she cuddled his new baby daughter. "I see we've got a screamer. Got to admit to you, Hemi, I did want a boy after the 2 girls. Now I can see that I'm going to be even more outnumbered by all the women around me. However, I will say this for her. She's got a decent pair of lungs, which is very useful in this family. I'm not sure if her eyes will turn brown like mine, but if they do, then she'll be more on my side of the family than you lot with your blue eyes and your fair hair." Bruno had thick, wiry black hair. He was stout and bearded. He had calluses on his huge hands and nasty scars across one eyebrow and below his cheek from a lumber accident. He was not fond of decorum, preferring always to be ready for a physical challenge, day or night. The midwife waited patiently for the placenta to follow the baby out. Mother Wilhelmina was desperately exhausted but relieved. Her cheeks flushed red with the exertion of the birth. This, her third baby, had been a more straightforward birth than the other 2, which had been longer in labour, with one baby being a breech and the other having had the cord wrapped around her neck on delivery. Bruno continued talking in his excited babble. "Oh, we don't carry anyone up here on this farm, you know. There's no room for any runts of the litter up here. You've got to be up for the job on these mountains. There's our stock of cattle, goats, pigs to tend, plus there's all the shouting we've got to do in order to sell all our goods at market. When they let us knock down prices at the end of trading, I want a girl with a loud mouth and a good tuneful voice to yodel over the rabble of all the competition. They grunt like angry bears to our confused customers. I'm glad to see we've not got a wallflower. She looks a little fighter to me. She's not as pretty as her eldest sister, mine, but she'll do, she'll do." Wilhelmina, still exhausted from bringing her newborn into the world, agreed. "It's true, our baby Agnetha might not win any beauty contests, but I don't care for looks much." Wilhelmina was a big lady. She had beautiful blonde hair and peachy cheeks. Her eyes were of a piercing blue, and she had strong arms and legs. She had been brought up into heavy manual labour and was very much at home, either taking pigs to slaughter or preparing game birds in the family kitchen. She loved to create dishes in the huge oven range and stove in the farms. You didn't marry me for my looks, Bruno. You were looking for a stocky farm girl with a kick like an angry ewe. That's what you got. I'm still much better looking than you, so if our new girl is a tiny bit ugly, then don't blame me. I'm just a tough farm girl who's got to get back to work pretty soon. Anyway, why am I wasting my time talking to you? What are you still doing here, staring at your wife having a baby, Bruno? Get your big ugly hog down to the market. You've now got 3 daughters to feed. You've got the birth certificate to sign, and all the paperwork that comes with it. You've got to pay the midwife here, and we need her signature. You need to get this form to the local register of births and marriages, etc., with her upstanding citizen signature on it to verify that our new baby is indeed a real Mount Rauber girl. I'm not going just yet. I haven't had a chance to get to know my new daughter. Sophia can clean up when I'm gone and help you to keep things ticking over, Bruno said. Sophia was the middle daughter, who would be staying at home to look after her mum, while Monica, the eldest, would accompany her dad to work. Both Sophia and Monica took after their mother. They had blonde hair and the same piercing blue eyes. Monica was stouter than her younger sister, but this was purely down to her increased physical strength. Neither girl pandered to fashion when on the farm, but they both shared a great passion for design and creativity, with a flair for making commercial quality goods in textiles for their father's market stall. Bruno addressed his wife as she lay breathing more calmly now. I'll send a worker to tell your mother that she's got another grandchild. The roads going across the mountain are now full of snow, but he'll get through if he goes through our woods. Tulipa Stapperhoff was the only surviving grandparent of the Veltheim children. Tulipa was Wilhelmina's mother. Sprite and mischievous, she was in her mid-70s. Tulipa lived in a small but very pretty village called Glockenspritter, which was some 10 kilometres away from the rest of the family. Solid chalet farmstead homes like those owned by the Veltheim family were hundreds of years old. Political stability in the 16th century had allowed families to carve out farming domains in this mountainous territory. The Veltheim chalet was very basic but roomy. It had signs of skilled carpentry everywhere, lots of intricate carvings, fancy ornate timber decorations. They were all the skilled hallmarks of carpenters, joiners and wood turners, with an eye for detail, plus an element of pride in their skills. These chalets had long beams, weight-bearing timbers, a metal beam for a hoist, and even a pulley system for heavy items. They had underground storage for supplies to cover the certainty of being cut off from the outside world for up to 3 months on occasion. The Silver Federation was part of the once great kingdom of Koblenza. The Albstein family, the old rulers, still had positions in the Federation of States, but their role was now largely ceremonial due to their power having been usurped by a powerful cartel of barons. They opposed the sovereignty of the Albsteins for many centuries. The Albsteins still had various decaying palaces dotted about their old kingdom, including some hunting lodges up here in the Alps. They were now, however, portrayed as being obsolete and worse, obstructive to the sweeping modernisation now gripping the nation. Power was in the hands of a council of barons, who, together with their financiers who controlled the programmes of infrastructural change, had swept the changes through the old monarchical region. The Silver Federation was now basically just a conglomeration of the old states. So far, the bloodless coup by baronial class agitators had all but overthrown the Albstein family. Political and military decision-making wasn't really any more in their hands. The new leaders had coined the renaming of a large collection of former Koblenza territories as the Silver Federation. This literally applied to currency changes as well. The unit of currency here was the guilter. It held up well against other European currencies. The Albstein heads were notably absent from any denomination of coins or notes in circulation. Since the bloodless coup, the Federation was against any form of monarchy. Hearts and minds, however, were more difficult to change. Older people longed for the older ways, so the new gods of industry still had to play second fiddle in ceremonial and traditional ways, for the time being anyway. The current head of the Albstein family was a widower, King Dominitz. He was 86, but his mental faculties were razor sharp. A strikingly handsome man, He played a wily game of diplomacy to outwit his enemies for most of his rule, but was now overthrown in terms of power by the opposing barons and industrialists. The family had no surviving children from the king's marriage. His son, Prince Basbao, had died at the age of only 22 in a tragic rowing accident during a race. But he had left behind 2 children. Prince Basbao's wife had died following the birth of her second child. King Dominitz's health was now waning. However, his grandson and granddaughter, Prince Albstar and Princess Leitz respectively, had taken on many of his onerous duties, such as touring the kingdom and attending the huge number of festivals and ceremonial duties which occurred all year round in the kingdom. With both of their parents dead and only the king to act as a guide, the odds were very much against the prince and princess ever regaining any hold on the old kingdom. The prince and princess were very persuasive but credible figures of state. Their attention to detail with ceremonial dress and their impeccable manners, as well as their love of art, music and architecture from bygone days, struck a chord with many citizens of the new Silver Federation. What the young royals lacked in hard cash, they oozed in class and style. Although not accomplished musicians, both royals could hold a tune on a clarinet or a flute, and the princess had a beautiful singing voice which deserved accompaniment on piano. However, ever present in the wings were the new, suited and booted rival barons from the thrusting Silver Federation. These new captains of industry were riding the crest of an industrial wave which threatened to completely sweep away the entire old order. The Silver Federation sounded just like some sort of public limited company which was just about to float on the stock exchange, rather than a beautiful Alpine region of collective states. Back in the Veltine birthing room, which was in reality the marital bedroom shared by Wilhelmina and Bruno, Bruno was being sanguine about his new daughter's birth. "That's it, I've cuddled my new daughter. Agnetha looks a real Veltine. I can't say she'll be a prize winner as May Queen, but beauty doesn't pay the bills up here. I think she looks so tough we could roll her down the Alps like a circle of cheese. I'll bring all the paperwork with me to get her birth registered, Hemi. I might have to stay for a few nights in town if the snow gets worse, but I don't have a choice. We've got to sell our goods to get food on our table. So I'm going to bring a lot of salted goat's meat and cheese with me to sell, and the handcrafted items. I'm taking Monica with me, so you can have Sophia, like I said, to help you if anything needs doing. I'll see if I can get a visit into the musical instruments repair shop as well. My old accordion is out of tune now, so I'll need some reeds replacing or retuning. Bellows are badly holed, and I think the bass buttons are not returning to their home positions correctly anymore. Oh, and don't call out the doctor unless you're desperate. He costs so much, we can't afford him anymore. Any problems, Hemi, just get Sophia to fetch the midwife again from the next village of Abergraft. She can give you medicines. Bye-bye, me brown trout. Love you, and I love my new little fish fry." "Ooh, he always wants something when he compliments me," weary Wilhelmina said to the midwife. "Rest now, my dear. I'm not sure that calling a lady a brown trout would pass for a compliment around here," said the midwife. "You've lost some blood during this delivery. You've got to regain your strength. Quick birth, Wilhelmina, but in this blizzard you mustn't come down with anything. I'll make you some soup, and you can have some hot coffee and bread. We'll see if you can breastfeed the baby Agnetha later on." Father and his eldest daughter Monica then ran to the stables to harness up 2 of their stoutest ponies. They brought extra feed for the horses on the sled, plus shovels and spades for digging themselves out of trouble in the snow, or to create a snow shelter if they were trapped on the main route down to the market. The trip to market would normally take a whole day, and more besides, but in this season it was wise to stop overnight. With that, Bruno and Monica were gone into the blizzard with their sled laden up with goods. Alstept, a collie cross, always joined the Veltines on their market trips. He had fierce loyalty, keen senses, an even temperament, and sufficient curiosity to warn of danger or the presence of a stranger. He'd quickly sense the proximity of wolves or bears to the sled. He might also bark if a red squirrel was in a nearby tree. Chapter 2.